other tissues and organs of the body and how they are working in this endocrine system. We left off talking about the kidneys. In part 1, in Bio 141, were you guys introduced to renin or angiotensin, okay, and ACE? Yes, no, maybe? Okay, should have come along, I want to say roughly in chapter 5 on the tissues, and talking about what they do and this sort of thing. Now, in the kidneys, I think in part 1, the introduction to this would have been in relationship to blood pressure. All right. Now, renin. Ever heard of that? Okay. Renin, this is going to be a substance, a hormone that the kidneys can secrete. It is going to be done at times when blood pressure problems are prevalent, and it's going to work with some other chemicals in the body, and it's going to be done by way of the lungs. And the goal, and we'll get more into this when we get into our next few chapters, because of it dealing with blood pressure. Now, the reason that I've kind of got it right here is because of that term ACE, ACE, where in the lungs there's going to be a way, because of angiotensin converting enzyme is present, and it's going to be a way that it helps blood pressure problems. The reason this is clinically significant right here is, have you ever been watching TV and the commercials come on for medications, and it will say, do not take if you have ever used ACE inhibitors. This is what an ACE inhibitor means. It means you took a medication that inhibited angiotensin converting enzyme and therefore affected blood pressure. That's why some medications, I want to say something like Xarelto or something. You know how you see the commercials for medications? And it will say, do not take if you have ever used an ACE inhibitor, because that is meaning that you've messed up that enzyme. And that medication can't handle that. And it can cause real problems that are not pretty for the individual, so to speak. Just saying. So, we will definitely come back to that when we get into the next couple of chapters. The stomach and the intestines, hopefully when you studied chapter 26 in part 1, you talked about the gut-brain peptides and how they have that connection to the brain, helps control the activities of the stomach, so the stomach is not emptying too quickly, how we get the signals to want to eat, to stop eating, to feel satisfied, basically letting the body know, the brain and the body talking about how much fat is in the body, which is supposed to be able to affect your appetite. So in our adipose tissue, the fat cells of the body, okay, they have the ability to secrete leptin, which is supposed to have a strong control over appetite. But I think I mentioned on Tuesday that this, they're finding that irregularities with this particular hormone is being related to severe cases of obesity. Our skeletal system has an effect with hormones. Our osteoblasts, okay, that immature, the developing cell, okay, secrete osteocalcin, which can affect the pancreas beta cells. Alpha and beta cells of the pancreas are important in helping us regulate insulin and glucagon and so forth. And what that's doing is helping not have the diabetes problems, okay? But what we're finding is that the skeletal tissue, what it can release, it might inhibit fat deposition, meaning that the fat that will get created from our diets, all right, which should go into a fat cell, that may not be occurring correctly, and it could end up contributing to onset of type 2 diabetes. So that's one of the things they're studying with diabetes for the skeletal system. The placenta, which is present at the time of pregnancy in a female. The placenta needed fetal nutrition, oxygenation, waste removal, but the number of hormones that are going to get released, used throughout the body and everything, as you know, okay, females get very, well, they call it very hormonal during pregnancy. This is one of the reasons why, okay? And it's basically that body trying to meet the needs of that offspring that's developing. So that is ways that other tissues in our body can have hormonal effects. These hormones in the body, which are chemical messengers, if you remember, except for that portal system and that hypothalamus to the pituitary, they have to circulate in the blood, all right? They have to be transported. So we're going to see that these hormones that get produced by the body, the classes that exist, they could be a steroid hormone, fat-based, okay, that cholesterol base. They could be monoamines. Monoamines. Does that term ring a bell? Protein types, okay? And then they could be peptides. If you remember, peptides are the bonds created between amino acids. So that says a peptide is an amino acid to an amino acid to amino acid to amino. Do you remember what structure that created for a protein? That polypeptide chain, and we had the classes of structures, primary, secondary, tertiary. What is just the chain? The first one, primary. But it's functional. Does that make sense? Okay. So, steroid hormones. They're going to be our sex steroids, corticosteroids. Do y'all remember what that means?
I was thinking cortisol.
Okay, and that's one that we can associate with the adrenal medulla. What is the other portion of the adrenal gland? The cortex. Corticosteroids. Okay? And calcitriol. The monoamines, dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine. These are also known as catecholamines. That was their older name for them. The monoamines are the melatonin, thyroid hormone. They're termed this because they keep an amino group. Think of the amino acids. This is letting us know something about their structure. And then the peptide chains, oxytocin, ADH, insulin, the releasing and inhibiting hormones, hormones of the anterior pituitary. They're either going to be a polypeptide, a chain, or glycoproteins, protein with the glucose chains. Okay? Now, having these three classes, we've got some that are lipid-based, some that aren't. Okay? Now, that becomes important in their ability to be transported. Okay? So, we'll have lipid-based and not. And that will affect how they get transported in the blood. With their chemistry, with their makeup, okay? The hormones, no, they are not in any way secreted in a steady rate. Even the thyroid hormone and the growth hormone, the two that we need pretty much all day, every day, they're still not in a constant level. So our bloodstream, the levels of those hormones are going to fluctuate. But that's okay, because how do we control them? What is the way that the body works?
Negative feedback.
Negative feedback. So the centers of the brain, i.e. brainstem, hypothalamus, okay, can detect levels, and then we can have the production or stop the production. So we're going to find that to get their secretion, in other words, do we need it? Do we not need it? We have to have a stimulus. Does everybody remember that? Okay? Because we have to determine, in this case, how much is present, and do we need to say, make more or stop? That connection between the hypothalamus and the anterior and posterior. Okay? So one way that we can have a stimulus is a neural stimulus. Nerves. Okay? Some have a nerve fiber directly to it, i.e. the adrenal medulla. Therefore, the stimulus for what we think of as adrenaline, okay, the stimulus can only be by way of a nerve fiber. Does that make sense? Because that nerve goes all the way to the medulla of that adrenal gland and synapses directly on those cells. Everybody